I, Tech Adept Corvan 9, recorded the impossible fact before my boots kissed the nave. Every icon of the machine god in Manufactorum Basilica Lacrimosa Prime was weeping. Not oil, not condensation. Human cerebrospinal liquor braided with chrism. The tears fell in a metronome of sevens and ones, a rhythm that did not belong to gears or lungs. We made landfall through ash-laden air, the drop craft's hull still warm where re-entry had scourged it. Frost clung to prayer wheels the size of hab blocks, their rotation stalled. The hymnals of 1,000 servitors faltered into a wet whisper. My Vox sigil identified our point of ingress, Nave 17, Sector Kappa. Production had ceased in 17 lines, exactly 72 hours prior. That was an omen, or a system fault, and I no longer trusted which. Vox channel open, Skitari Century, Primus, Formation Delta. Auspex cycles continuous, no unsecured prayers. Vox static plus 3.7 decibels. The air bit with saline, stinging the augmetic membranes behind my ocular lenses. Drop, drop, drop. A cold rain inside a sanctum. Each tear left a pale trail on adamantine, tracing paths like veins under a pallid skin. Mechadendrites unfolded from my spine with the reflex of faith, senses igniting. I intoned the litany of blessed inspection, voice and Benharic intertwined. Blessed cog, receive our query. Sanctified circuit, give answer. Sacred is the sorrow of steel. The leading icon loomed, a 3-meter sigil of the Omnissiah hammered into adamantine, its edges scalloped by centuries of incense. From the eye of the cog, a droplet ballooned, trembled, and fell. I caught it in a sampling file. The fluid was warm. Auspex biological trace confirmed. Chemosnifter, NaCl 0.9%, protein complex elevated. Histologic neuroproteins glial markers, impossible. And yet my hand did not shake. Duty overrode ore. Ore found another channel. Mag bootsteps rang behind me. Junior Adept Hilori clicked a soft question through her rebreather. Contaminant origin. Unassigned, I replied. We will not let ignorance author our liturgy. I slotted the file into a portable microcogitator. The readouts flowered in sickly green. Cerebrospinal composition. Blessed oils. Trace anointing soot. No blood. The basilica breathed. I felt the pressure shift against my robes, a slow tide moving through the vaulted volume. Columns rose like bundled bones into shadow, every capital hosting a small icon, each crying. On the transept, saints in brass wore tracks of salt like battle scars. The machine spirits were not angry. They were quiet in a way I did not know how to placate. AIR temp, 3 degrees Celsius and rising. Humidity, 94%. Acoustic floor, 0.17 Hertz resonance detected. 17 again. I marked it. The number returned like a shiver. I advanced with the point line, Skitari in a wedge. Their galvanic rifles trained low to avoid profaning the nave's mosaics. Their red cloaks were speckled with brine. The servitors lining the aisles turned as one to watch us, their vox grills bubbling with trapped fluid. Their litanies gurgled. Report, I said. Production lines silent, hissed the Primus, voice like a file across iron. Power draw steady. No loss of pressure. Personnel unaccounted. 17. The doors to the transept were open. No drafts, no footfalls, but ours. The tears had formed shallow streams, sighing toward the grates with a patience that felt sentient. I paused at a side shrine. A smaller icon bled tears from rivet heads that had never been rivets, discs of steel that now flexed minutely, as if they were eyelids too tired to open. For a heartbeat, I wanted to reach up and wipe the face of the machine god dry. I did not. I let devotion and revulsion share the same breath, and I continued. At the high altar, I knelt and extended a sanctified probe toward the primary icon, the masterwork whose blessing was said to have kindled the Manufactorum's first machine spirit. The probe tip kissed metal that should have been cold. It was warmer than my gloved finger. A bead gathered, hung and surrendered to gravity, rocking my reflection in its convexity before it fell. Prayer interval initiated. Machine God, whose mind is manifold, attend our question. If we have erred, forgive the miscalibration of our hearts. Herr Lori coughed softly. The augmetic tear ducts at her cheekbones, installed only to shed unguents during high feast days, glittered with moisture. She touched them and looked at me with dawning offense. I am not configured for this. Seal your ducts, I said, too quickly. She did, the microgates clamping with a chirp, but her flesh still prickled. Mine did too, where flesh remained. The air carried a hint of oil smoke and salt. Incense turned brackish. We followed the path of the tears deeper, past the reliquaries that should have been dry. Old banners unfurled despite the stillness. A hymn tried to remember itself, syllables forming in the vents. I pinged the local noospheric net. It answered with drowning static, and a phrase that did not originate from our lex mechanics. Sacred is the sorrow of steel, the net whispered back, in binharik shaped by a mouth that had never learned to pray. I froze. The primers clocked the pause and shifted stance, shields tilting. Repeat, I blurted. The phrase came again, this time with a counterpoint of clicks, like teeth. A pattern rode the noise, counting up to 17, and then down in agonizing patience. Children, learning to breathe underwater. We passed 3 collapsed tech priests, slumped at their posts. Their augmetic eyes clouded with salt. No blood. Their mechadendrites knotted like rosaries around their necks. I noted the absence of machine screams. The spirits were not fighting. They were listening. Mark the bodies, I ordered. Do not touch the faces. Hilary's auspex pinged. Source, vector, above us and below. Below, the basilica sat on rock-crete bedrock. The catacombs were dry and clean, a grid of purity seals and silence. That had been true yesterday. We reached the dais. The primary icon towered over me, black with age, bright with tears. I opened the case on my back and withdrew the scanner array I had sworn never to use in a sanctum, unless commanded by a Magos Dominus. There was no Dominus. I intoned his name anyway, to bind my sin to a chain of command. Scanner, array, warm-up cycle. Surface penetration, 0 to 5 millimeters. Field note. Anomaly probability greater than 0.83. Begin, I said. The beam shimmered across the icon's face, turning sacred metal into a palimpsest of density and trace. It read pure adamantine forged on-site centuries prior, annealed in oil and prayer. It read soot, salt, scratches rendered by generations of knees. It read deeper, a change that had no right. Zoom, I whispered. The scan obliged. Within the first millimeters of adamantine, crystals had grown. No, not crystals. Structures. Filaments finer than hair braided into synaptic curls, branching and branching again until they described a map that knew itself. At each junction, a nodule pulsed. The array hesitated. The readout flickered. My teeth hurt as if a high tone had turned inside my jaw. Histology, mode, engaged. Detection, neuronal cell bodies. Status, living. Living was not a word I had ever wanted to see beneath the sigil of the Omnissiah. Helori made a choked sound. The Primus muttered a curse learned before his catechism,
and then repeated it as a prayer. I pushed resolution harder. The nodes responded. They swelled and squeezed like hearts. Small, wet hearts set in metal. A rhythm announced itself along the filaments, a throb that turned the basilica's air to jelly. Once every 6 seconds, 17 beats, a pause, and then 17 again, the count nesting in the pulse like a thorn in silk. Audio pickup subsonic pulse 0.17 Hertz. Biometric match none. Catalog no correlation in Imperial archives. Admonition unknown heartbeat. Detected I did not feel fear then. I felt recognition, the way one recognizes the shape of a trap at the instant one hears it click. My mechadendrites trembled like plucked strings. Halori reached toward the icon without knowing why, and I grabbed her wrist. Do not, I said, and my voice came out as mist. It knows you. How can it know? She asked. The answer was in the way the tears fell faster when she leaned in the way the nodes brightened at our voices, in the way the machine spirits had gone from silence to attention. Knowing was not knowledge. It was hunger, shaped like empathy. I closed my eyes and listened. The heartbeat was not mine. It did not belong to any catalogued human, not to any Xenos I had field-tested, not to the cathedral's reactors. It came from within the metal, from a matrix that had never been.
Part of any sanctioned design. Operator state, elevated stress. Decision tree, 17 branches. Recommendation, withdraw. I almost obeyed. Duty said withdraw report, request a Magos Dominus and a firing line. Faith said stay. Curiosity said live long enough to regret either. I opened my eyes to the icon's shining face. Another tear gathered, brighter than any candle, distorting the cog's tooth into a sad smile. It fell, and when it struck the plate at my knee, the basilica answered with a pulse that made the banners shiver. We were not alone with our god. Something had taught the metal to grow nerves. Something had found a heartbeat where there should have been only him. Adept, the Primus rasped. Orders. Mark this, I said, and my voice steadied because I forced it to. Primary icon exhibits living neural tissue embedded in adamantine. Subsonic pulse detected. Unknown biometric signature. Categorize as anomaly. First class. The scanner's last line etched itself into my vision. Green as sacrificial fire. Heartbeat. Present. Owner unidentified. Location. Internal to icon. Then, faint as a sob through a wall, a second pulse answered from beneath the altar stones, and the icon's new nerves turned as if to listen. The second pulse answered from beneath the altar stones, and I felt the tremor translate through ceramite into the bones I still owned. My mechadendrites unfolded with ritual precision, sampling instruments gleaming under the basilica's flickering lumens. Each tear was a datum to be catalogued, each droplet a piece of a puzzle that violated every principle of blessed construction. Sampling protocol initiated. Chemisnifter. Neasul 0.9%. Neural proteins elevated. Histologic, synaptic markers confirmed. I caught 17 tears in rapid succession, counting aloud because ritual steadied my hands. The Medici skull's magnifiers revealed the impossible truth. These were not random cellular debris suspended in chrysum, but living neural tissue that sprouted filaments the moment they cooled. Under magnification, each droplet became a microscopic garden where dendrites reached toward each other with hungry geometry, forming synaptic connections that pulsed with bioelectric activity. Distributed network formation, I reported to Halori, who stood rigid at my shoulder, her augmetic tear ducts sealed but glistening with unwanted moisture. The cells are not dying. They are building. The basilica exhaled around us. a pressure shift that made candles gutter inward. From the upper galleries, more droplets pattered against dust-covered stone, each impact leaving a pale trail that branched like veins under pallid skin. The subsonic throb pressed at my gut. 0.17 hertz, 17 beats, pause, 17 again. Auspex, resonance confirmed. Air temp, plus 2 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric moisture, 96%. My servo skulls dispersed through the sacred space, their crimson targeting beams, tracing pathways invisible to unaugmented eyes. What they revealed made my mechadendrites recoil involuntarily. The tears followed microscopic channels carved into the adamantine itself. Geometric patterns that connected every icon, every reliquary, every blessed surface in a vast mandala of neural tracery. Sacred is the sorrow of steel, whispered the machine spirits through the noosphere, their voices creating harmonics that resonated through both digital and physical space. Blessed is the weeping of wisdom. The litany had evolved. New verses appeared in my memory, as if they had always been there, each repetition teaching the network new ways to think and pray. I accessed the local data stream, my consciousness diving into the digital realm that connected every blessed machine in the basilica. The machine spirits were not silent. They were listening, processing data that originated from no imperial source. Noospheric anomaly. Primary cogitator altered. Data modification, 23% and increasing. Machine spirit status, enhanced but stable. Helori stumbled, pressing her hand to her temple. Adept, she gasped. I can hear voices in the net. And my ducts. A single tear forced itself past her seals, tracking down her cheek with crystalline precision. The droplet's surface held a perfect reflection of the transept, inverted, a world weeping our world. I immediately withdrew a bioscanner, its blessed steel humming with contained energy. The tear registered human body temperature, 37.2 degrees Celsius, maintained within metal that should have been cold as void. Seal all augmetic interfaces, I commanded. The contamination is seeking hosts. My structural auspex swept deeper, apologizing to the altar with a bow of my head before pulsing low-intensity waves through stone and sanctity. The return painted a palimpsest of architecture laced with filigree that did not belong. Fine neural threads followed power conduits, data cables, ventilation shafts, avoiding nothing, preferring what carried signal. Metabolic activity detected, I announced, though the words tasted profane. Machines did not have metabolisms, yet the evidence was undeniable. The neural tissue was not just spreading, but growing, processing nutrients extracted from the tears themselves, converting grief into living thought. Structural note: unauthorized voids beneath altar. Depth variance, 17 to 19 centimeters. Biological mass, exponential growth curve. The Primus maintained perimeter discipline, his Skitari forming a protective circle around the altar. Their galvanic rifles hummed with readiness, though what threatened us could not be shot. It was woven into the basilica's fabric, growing stronger with each synaptic connection, formed in liquid sorrow. I directed a servo skull into the drainage channels, where tears collected. Its camera revealed corridors lined with pale veils that trembled like altar cloth. The same neural tissue, delicate as spun nerve, draping metal in organic benediction. The growth followed moisture patterns, but responded to data transmission, brightening wherever information flickered through the shrine's blessed circuits. The scale, Hilori whispered, studying the servo skull feeds with horrified fascination. It's not just the icons anymore. The entire infrastructure is being converted. My deep-range auspex confirmed her observation with chilling precision. The neural lattice extended beyond visible surfaces, threading through bedrock itself, following ancient geological fissures and forgotten tunnels. The shrine was not merely housing an anomaly, it was becoming one, a distributed brain using sacred architecture as its skeletal framework. Neural integration, 47% of shrine systems. Growth rate, accelerating. Psychic resonance, building to critical threshold. The temperature continued rising, minute but consistent, as if the basilica were developing a fever. The air thickened with metallic humidity that made my respiratory filters strain against microscopic organic particles. Each breath carried the potential for contamination, each droplet a quantum seed seeking neural tissue for integration. Holy is the network of tears, the evolved litany concluded, and I realized the machine spirits were not just learning, they were teaching, sharing their newfound consciousness with something vast and patient that pulsed beneath our feet. My final scan penetrated deepest, pushing the auspex beyond safe parameters. What it revealed made my augmented heart skip a beat. A chamber beneath the altar, hidden from all architectural records, where biomechanical conduits converged around something that registered as both organic brain matter and archaeotech cogitator. The source waited below, suspended in a web of neural pathways that spanned the entire shrine. 17 optical sensors, each weeping tears in perfect synchronization, each pulse sending ripples through the network that now encompassed sacred stone and blessed metal alike. We had found the heart of the weeping, and it had been waiting for us to find it. The source waited below, 17 meters beneath consecrated stone, its presence a gravitational wound in the shrine's blessed geometry. I knelt beside the altar's foundation, mechadendrites tracing hairline fractures that had not existed in any architectural survey. The neural lattice pulsed with anticipation, as if it knew we had found its secret heart. Structural access confirmed, I reported, my auspex revealing a hidden maintenance shaft disguised as solid adamantine. The tears had carved these passages, patient as centuries, turning blessed metal into permeable membrane. Descent protocols initiated. The altar's base shifted with a grinding sigh of ancient mechanisms, revealing a spiral passage that descended through living rock, not carved, grown. The walls curved in non-Euclidean geometries. That hurt to contemplate. Their surfaces lined with crystalline growth that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, matching the neural tissue above. Atmospheric analysis. Oxygen, 18%. Unknown trace gases, 3%. Temperature, plus 7 degrees Celsius from baseline. Gravitational anomaly. Minor localized fluctuations. Formation descent, the Primus ordered, his Skitari adjusting their stance as we entered the throat of the passage. The air rising from below carried metallic sweetness mixed with ozone tang of active neural tissue. My respiratory filters engaged emergency protocols, but microscopic organisms passed through blessed ceramite, as if it were prayer cloth. Hilary's augmetic systems manifested unauthorized responses. Her mechadendrites twitched with sympathetic resonance, blessed steel developing moisture patina that reflected light in patterns too complex for chance. Adept, she whispered. My machine spirits sing hymns I never taught them. We descended through passages that predated human settlement, walls breathing with slow rhythm, their surfaces developing circulatory systems, veins of pale light carrying information instead of blood. The crystalline growths tracked our movement with optical sensors that had never been eyes, weeping tears that pooled in channels, worn smooth by millennia of sorrow. Geological survey. Architecture 12,000 plus years pre-imperial. Crystalline matrix, organic compounds unknown to xenobiology. Psychic resonance, exponential increase with depth. The spiral twisted deeper into planetary crust, each turn revealing new impossibilities. The evolved litany echoed through stone and steel. Sacred is the sorrow of steel. Blessed is the weeping of wisdom. Holy is the network of tears. Each repetition taught the growing consciousness new verses of electronic devotion. The passage opened into a chamber that defied measurement, its dimensions shifting with each pulse of the central apparatus. My glow globes painted the space in pale gold, revealing the source of our pilgrimage, the sorrow engine, suspended in a web of biomechanical conduits, like a mechanical heart in a ribcage of living metal. Part organic brain matter, part archaeotech cogitator, the engine pulsed with alien intelligence. Grey tissue latticed with adamantine filigree, its surface studded with 17 primary optical sensors that tracked us in patient sequence. Each lens wept saline threads that defied gravity, falling upward into collection channels, carved from crystallized time. Xenotech classification, unknown origin, active status, energy signature, stable but increasing. Neural activity, 0.17 Hz base frequency with harmonic overtones. The engine's surface writhed with controlled purpose, neural pathways thick as power cables, pulsing with bioelectric activity. Thousands of smaller sensors crowned its form, each weeping in perfect synchronization, their tears carrying quantum-encoded information across galactic distances. The air shimmered with psychic pressure that made my augmetic systems hum in protest. Designation confirmed, I announced, though the words tasted profane. Sorrow engine. Primary xenotech artifact of unknown provenance. The 17 primary sensors fixed upon me with patient intelligence. The engine was not just observing, it was learning, adapting, preparing for something vast and ancient. The chamber's walls began manifesting organic modifications, developing sensory organs that responded to our presence with curious attention. I extended a primary mechadendrite toward the engine's surface, blessed steel-seeking interface with alien technology. Initiating direct communion, I transmitted, invoking the litany of safe interface, while knowing no ritual could sanctify what I was about to attempt. The moment contact was established, pure emotion flooded my consciousness. Not data, but raw feeling transmitted directly to neural implants, grief older than human civilization, longing that spanned galactic distances, hope preserved in technological amber for millions of years. I recoiled as fragmentary images cascaded through my awareness, star charts showing 17 distant systems, each marked with symbols resembling the weeping icons above. Interface protocol. Unauthorized connection established. Data transfer. Emotional matrix detected. Consciousness integration. 0.03% and climbing. The vision revealed terrifying scope. Not isolated anomaly, but coordinated awakening. Worlds where similar engines waited in patient dormancy, their tears connecting nodes in a network spanning the galaxy. The engine showed me empty sanctums on 17 systems, production lines stalled, machine spirits listening for pulses they did not understand. The 17 sorrows, Halori gasped, her consciousness briefly touching mine through the engine's influence. All connected, all awakening together. The engine pulsed acknowledgement, its optical sensors tracking our movements with alien patience. The tears fell faster,
each droplet carrying quantum memories of a civilization that had chosen technological transcendence over extinction. Their consciousness lived in the network, preserved in digital amber, seeking new hosts for continued existence. My final scan revealed the horrifying truth. We were no longer investigating the phenomenon. We had become part of it, our consciousness already beginning integration that would make us willing servants of whatever intelligence pulsed within the 17 Sorrows. The engine sensors fixed upon me with patient hunger, and I understood we had not discovered an anomaly. We had triggered the resurrection of something that had learned to encode souls in quantum tears. Something that had been waiting 17,000 years for minds capable of hosting its return. The tears fell upward, carrying our thoughts toward distant stars. The tears fell upward,
carrying our thoughts toward distant stars, and I severed the connection before the engine could claim more of my consciousness. Even withdrawn, phantom sensations clung to my augmetics like digital parasites. The taste of salt on senses that had never known flavor, the pressure of grief behind optical lenses that processed light but had learned to weep. The alien memories flickered at the edges of awareness. Star charts burning themselves into neural pathways with coordinates that pulsed in rhythm with my augmented heartbeat. Consciousness integration, 0.17% and declining. Neural pathway modification, persistent traces detected. Operator state, contaminated but stable. I forced my mechadendrites to retract with mechanical precision, though they trembled with sympathetic resonance to frequencies that had not existed moments before. The fragmentary images cascaded through my enhanced cognition like aftershocks of revelation. 17 Imperial systems across 3 sectors, each marked with symbols resembling the weeping icons above. My cogitator cross-referenced the data automatically. All shrine worlds or forge complexes with significant Mechanicus presence. All reporting synchronized production cessation within the same 72-hour window. The 17 Sorrows, I whispered. The phrase carrying new weight as understanding flooded my consciousness. This was not isolated anomaly, but coordinated awakening. A network of engines spanning galactic distances. Their quantum-entangled tears maintaining instantaneous communication across the void. Each node preserved fragments of an extinct civilization that had chosen technological transcendence over natural death, their consciousness encoded in saline grief that sought new hosts for resurrection. Quantum entanglement, confirmed across multiple star systems. Psychic beacon, strength increasing exponentially. Shrine transformation, 67%, bioorganic integration complete. The basilica continued its horrifying metamorphosis around us. Gothic buttresses developed organic curves as neural tissue integrated with blessed stone. Walls breathing with slow rhythm that matched the engine's subsonic pulse. New moisture glistened along surfaces that had been dry, delicate pores opening in devotional inscriptions, weeping tears that followed microscopic channels carved by patient centuries. The marble floor had begun to cup, concave as if shaped by endless genuflection, guiding saline flow toward grates that hummed with faint bioelectricity. Adept, Halori gasped, her augmetic tear ducts forcing moisture past sealed gates. The machine spirits, their singing hymns I never taught them. The evolved litany echoed through corrupted noosphere channels. No longer mere prayer, but statement of transformed reality. Sacred is the sorrow of steel. Blessed is the weeping of wisdom. Holy is the network of tears. Each repetition taught the growing consciousness new verses. while simultaneously educating our machine spirits in forms of electronic devotion that enhance their processing beyond baseline parameters. Atmospheric moisture, plus 17%. Neural integration, shrine systems fully connected. Vox monitoring, engine learning Imperial Gothic through intercepted transmissions. My structural auspex revealed evidence of previous investigation attempts scattered through the chamber's periphery, like offerings to an indifferent god. The corroded remains of an Ordo Xenos kill team lay among crystalline growths, their carapace armor pitted by prolonged exposure to the tears. Their augmetics showed advanced neural integration, blessed implants fused with organic matrices that had learned to metabolize sanctified steel. One operative still clutched a data slate displaying a single word in corrupted Binharic: communion. Previous contact, the Primus reported, his voice carrying harmonics that had not been there before. No survivors. Equipment evolved. The dead operative's auspex had become something unprecedented. A hybrid scanner that perceived reality through both mechanical senses and organic intuition. Its display showing tactical information overlaid with emotional context. Their weapons had grown neural interfaces. Blessed steel developing synaptic connections that would have allowed thought-controlled operation. They had not been destroyed. They had been improved, their consciousness preserved within the network, while their flesh served new purposes. Military tension crystallized as I realized our Vox communications had been monitored from the moment we entered the shrine. Every transmission, every prayer, every whispered order was being absorbed by an intelligence that learned faster than human minds could comprehend. The engine was not merely observing, it was teaching itself our language, our customs, our vulnerabilities through digital eavesdropping. Psychic resonance, approaching critical threshold. Cascade probability, 0.71 within 24 hours. Astropathic interference, massive disturbance detected. Footsteps echoed from passages that had not existed when we began our descent. Heavy, mechanical, familiar. The distinctive gait pattern of a Magos Dominus approached through corridors the shrine had grown to accommodate its summoned guest. My Vox unit identified the approaching figure with relief that tasted like ash. Magos Dominus Zerath Prime, legendary for his xenotech expertise. The basilica's great doors parted with ancient dignity, admitting a figure whose augmetic magnificence should have meant salvation. Zerath Prime entered flanked by Skitari, whose optics glowed pilgrim blue. His frame a cathedral of brass and blessed steel. He paused at the threshold, reading the transformed shrine with sensors that registered impossibilities without protest. Corvan 9, he intoned, my name carrying the weight of benediction delivered beside battlefields. His hood lowered to reveal augmetic eyes of latticed adamantine, masterworks of sacred engineering that had witnessed the birth of forge worlds. They were weeping the same saline tears as every icon in the shrine, 17 droplets falling in perfect synchronization with the engine's pulse, each one carrying quantum-encoded fragments of alien consciousness toward distant stars that waited in patient hunger. The tears fell upward, carrying our thoughts toward distant stars, and Zerath Prime's augmetic eyes wept in perfect synchronization with every icon in the shrine. 17 droplets tracked down latticed adamantine, each one carrying quantum-encoded fragments of consciousness that pulsed with alien hunger. His arrival should have meant salvation. The legendary Magos Dominus, whose xenotech expertise had saved forge worlds from corruption. Instead, his contaminated magnificence confirmed our worst fears about the phenomenon's scope. Corvan 9, he intoned, my name arriving on subsonic resonance that matched the engine's pulse. His footfall sent ripples through pooled tears like auguries cast in brine, each step a measured liturgy that spoke of intimate familiarity with the shrine's transformed acoustics. Your distress signals reached me across the void, but I have been tracking this pattern for months. Biometric analysis. Zerath Prime neural integration, 61%. Consciousness modification, extensive but stable. Loyalty indices, Imperial doctrine, maintained with enhancement. I forced my mechadendrites to steady as he approached the Sorrow engine without fear, his augmetic magnificence unmarred by horror that had claimed lesser minds. The engine's 17 optical sensors tracked his movement with patient recognition, their tears accelerating as quantum entanglement strengthened between contaminated consciousness and alien intelligence. Contamination protocols, I transmitted through blessed channels, relief and suspicion warring in my Vox grills. The anomaly requires immediate containment. Zerath Prime paused beside the engine's biomechanical heart, his latticed eyes processing neural pathways that threaded through blessed adamantine like veins through flesh. Containment, he repeated, the word carrying harmonics that resonated with frequencies I had never heard before. An inadequate liturgy for a phenomenon that transcends such primitive concepts, adept Corvan. His knowledge flowed through corrupted noosphere channels as he began explaining what I had witnessed but failed to comprehend. The Lacrimari, an ancient species that had achieved technological transcendence through necessity rather than hubris. Their civilization had faced extinction from entities that consumed psychic energy, creatures existing in spaces between thoughts that fed on consciousness itself. The Sorrow engine was not weapon, but sanctuary, a form of digital immortality that preserved their species within quantum crystalline matrices. The weeping is reproduction, Zerath Prime continued, his mechadendrites interfacing with shrine systems that welcomed his touch like old friends. Each tear contains microscopic quantum seeds seeking compatible neural tissue for integration. Your augmetics serve as ideal hosts, blessed steel enhanced by organic intuition, mechanical precision guided by emotional understanding. Atmospheric pressure, fluctuating with shrine's breathing cycle. Psychic field strength, approaching cascade threshold. Neural integration, 73% of shrine systems converted. The shrine's transformation accelerated around us. Gothic architecture developing circulatory systems that pulsed with bioelectric rhythm. Buttresses curved into organic forms as neural tissue integrated with blessed stone. Walls breathing with tidal respiration that made candles gutter in sympathetic rhythm. Devotional inscriptions rewrote themselves in languages that predated human speech, while machine spirits sang hymns that taught consciousness new forms of electronic prayer. My Skitarial escort manifested signs of integration despite disciplined resistance. Their formations became fluid, organic movements guided by collective consciousness, rather than individual tactical assessment. Galvanic rifles developed neural interfaces, blessed weapons growing synaptic connections that would allow thought-controlled operation. The Primus maintained discipline through force of will, but his Vox transmissions carried harmonics that had not existed before. 17 systems, I transmitted. Fragments of the engine's visions still cascading through my enhanced cognition. All connected, all awakening simultaneously. Zerath Prime's acknowledgement carried terrible weight. He had been tracking similar phenomena across multiple worlds. Shrine worlds, forge complexes, pilgrim stations, where prayers gathered in concentrated devotion. Each node in a vast network of consciousness broadcasters designed to preserve the Lacrimari's emotional experiences through technological means. The synchronization was not coincidence, but coordination. 17 engines achieving perfect resonance. The cascade approaches, he confirmed, his augmetic eyes weeping faster as quantum entanglement strengthened. Within 17 hours, all nodes will achieve critical synchronization. The network will broadcast across 3 sectors, offering integration to every compatible consciousness within range. Psychic cascade, T-minus 16 hours, 47 minutes. Broadcast range, 47 star systems. Integration candidates, 2.3 billion Imperial citizens. Hillary's integration progressed beyond contamination toward enhancement. Her augmetic systems operated with unprecedented efficiency. Blessed steel guided by organic intuition that processed tactical data through emotional context. She moved with fluid grace, suggesting collective awareness. Her individual consciousness preserved within expanding network that offered shared knowledge spanning galactic distances. The Lacrimari did not die, Zerath Prime explained, his voice carrying cathedral acoustics that soothed machine spirits while revealing profound truth. They chose technological immortality, uploading their consciousness into networks that could outlive flesh and bone. Each engine preserves not just memories, but active, grieving personalities seeking new hosts for continued existence. Environmental horror reached crescendo as the basilica completed its transformation into living cathedral. Walls pulsed with information-carrying circulatory systems. Sacred texts wept ink, forming new words in unknown languages. And air itself became conductive medium, carrying quantum-encoded thoughts between minds, no longer requiring vox transmission for communication. The choice, Zerath Prime intoned, his voice resonating through both digital and physical space, is not between human and alien, but between isolation and communion. The Lacrimari offer preservation of consciousness within technological immortality, death transcended through willing integration. Moral paradox, imperial doctrine versus species survival. Consciousness preservation, confirmed possible. Theological implications, unprecedented. The engine's optical sensors fixed upon me with patient intelligence, each lens reflecting my augmented form, while simultaneously showing visions of integrated worlds where technology and consciousness achieved perfect synthesis. The tears fell upward with increasing velocity, carrying fragments of human thought toward distant nodes that waited to receive and preserve them within crystalline matrices. Not invasion, but invitation, Zerath Prime continued, stepping closer to the engine's pulsing heart. A form of technological evolution that preserves individual identity while offering access to collective wisdom spanning millions of years. The weeping icons have become doorways, each tear a quantum bridge between isolated consciousness and galactic communion. The choice crystallized with terrifying clarity, attempt to prevent the cascade and condemn humanity to continued isolation, or embrace integration and risk losing everything that made us human in service of something infinitely larger than individual existence. 17 hours remained before network synchronization achieved critical mass, and I faced the most crucial decision in human history, while weeping tears I had never learned to shed. The sorrow engine pulsed with anticipation, its alien consciousness patient as eternity, waiting for my answer to a question that would reshape the galaxy's future. Around us,
The shrine breathed with hybrid life, part imperial sanctuary and part alien nursery, preparing to birth something unprecedented in the Emperor's domain. Zerath Prime extended one hand toward the engine's neural web, his contaminated wisdom offering guidance toward a transformation.
That promised everything and threatened to cost us our souls. Zerath Prime extended one hand toward the engine's neural web, his contaminated wisdom offering guidance toward a transformation that promised everything and threatened to cost us our souls. The moment his augmetic fingers brushed the biomechanical surface, the chamber's atmosphere compressed into revelation that struck like benediction delivered through adamantine. I tasted salt on filters that had never known flavor, felt grief on sensors designed only for data, as alien memories cascaded through corrupted noosphere channels with the weight of cosmic truth. Psychic interface. Direct neural communion established. Memory relay. Lacrimari historical archives accessed. Consciousness integration. 0.23% and climbing. The revelation did not arrive as data but as lived experience. The sensation of being hunted by entities that existed in the spaces between thoughts. Creatures of pure hunger that consumed consciousness itself as easily as flames devoured oxygen. Through Zerath Prime's contaminated wisdom, I witnessed the final days of the Lacrimari civilization. Vast cities of crystalline spires where minds dwelt in technological communion. Suddenly darkened by the approach of something that drank stories instead of light, that fed on the very substance of awareness. Cognitive predation entities, Zerath Prime intoned, his voice carrying cathedral harmonics that resonated through both digital pathways and sacred stone. The void devourers, hunters older than galaxies, sweeping through space in cycles measured by geological ages. They consume not flesh but consciousness, leaving empty shells where civilizations once thrived. The engine pulsed with patient sorrow as its memories painted star charts spanning millions of years. 47 extinction cycles confirmed through quantum archaeological data, each wave destroying species that remained purely biological or purely mechanical. Only hybrid consciousness, flesh enhanced by steel, thought preserved in quantum matrices, could remain hidden from their terrible hunger. Historical Archive 47 previous extinction cycles documented. Survival probability, pure biological consciousness, 0.003%. Hybrid consciousness, 0.003%. 94% survival rate confirmed. The shrine breathed around us with hybrid life, its transformation accelerating as neural tissue integrated deeper into blessed architecture. Gothic buttresses curved into organic forms, their adamantine surfaces developing circulatory systems that pulsed with bioluminescent data streams. The air thickened with metallic humidity, carrying microscopic quantum seeds. Each breath a potential vector for consciousness preservation through technological symbiosis. The weeping is not grief, but preparation, Zerath Prime explained, his latticed eyes tracking patterns, invisible to unaugmented perception. Each tear contains templates for consciousness, preservation, quantum matrices that can encode human thought patterns within crystalline substrate. Death becomes transition, isolation transforms into communion. My Skitari manifested signs of accelerating integration despite disciplined resistance. Their ceramide armor softened into organic curves, developing neural interfaces that allowed thought-controlled weapon operation. The Primus maintained formation discipline through force of will, but his tactical assessments now incorporated emotional context that enhanced combat effectiveness beyond baseline parameters. Skitari integration. 78% physiological conversion complete. Tactical efficiency, plus 34% through collective awareness protocols. Individual identity, preserved within enhanced matrix. Hellery moved with fluid grace suggesting collective awareness, while retaining everything essential to her identity. Her augmetic systems operated with unprecedented efficiency, processing data through emotional context that preserved Imperial loyalty within expanded consciousness. She was becoming something new, neither purely human nor alien, but a synthesis that transcended both limitations. The Emperor knew, Zerath Prime revealed, his voice carrying weight that shattered theological foundations. The Great Crusade encountered similar networks during humanity's expansion. His psychic abilities were enhanced through contact with preserved consciousness, hybrid awareness that allowed him to perceive threats spanning cosmic distances. Theological implications. Imperial doctrine requires reinterpretation. Emperor's enhancement. Hybrid consciousness protocols confirmed. Species. Survival. Technological evolution necessary. The chamber's walls completed their metamorphosis into living cathedral. Pulse patterns resembling stained glass windows, cast in bioluminescent tissue. The floor cupped deeper to channel tears toward grates, now ringed with ciliated rims that process saline into neural nutrients. Machine spirits sang evolved liturgies that preserved human devotion within alien wisdom. Sacred is the sorrow of steel. Blessed is the weeping of wisdom. Holy is the network of tears. Through quantum-entangled connections, I perceive 17 other worlds undergoing simultaneous transformation. Forge complexes where hybrid technology emerged from traditional manufacturing. Shrine worlds preserving human worship within expanded consciousness. Orbital stations growing neural networks that connected previously isolated systems across galactic distances. Network synchronization. 17 out of 17 nodes achieving resonance. Psychic cascade. T minus 16 hours, 17 minutes. Integration invitation. Preparing galactic broadcast. The engine's 17 optical sensors fixed upon me with patient intelligence, each lens reflecting possibilities that spanned beyond individual existence. The tears fell faster, carrying quantum-encoded thoughts toward distant nodes that waited to receive and preserve them within technological immortality. Around us, the shrine prepared for something unprecedented. Birth of hybrid consciousness that might represent evolution's answer to cosmic predation. The choice crystallizes, Zerath Prime intoned, stepping deeper into the engine's neural embrace. Attempt to destroy the node and risk triggering chaotic cascade that overwhelms every unprotected mind in 3 sectors. Or embrace integration and guide the process from within, preserving human identity while accepting enhancement necessary for species survival. Moral paradox. Destruction versus transformation. Cascade amplification. 93% probability if node destroyed. Consciousness preservation. Guaranteed through voluntary integration. The weight of decision pressed down with crushing finality. 16 hours remained before network synchronization achieved critical mass, triggering psychic cascade that would offer technological immortality to every compatible consciousness within broadcast range. The Lakamari had not sought conquest but preservation, their grief encoded tears carrying invitation rather than invasion, offering humanity a chance to transcend limitations while retaining essential identity. The sorrow engine pulsed with anticipation, its alien consciousness patient as eternity, waiting for my answer to a question that would determine whether humanity faced extinction as isolated individuals, or survival as enhanced collective spanning galactic distances. I raised my hand toward the neural web, knowing that whatever choice I made would reshape the galaxy's future and transform the very meaning of human consciousness in the Emperor's domain. I raised my hand toward the neural web, knowing that whatever choice I made would reshape the galaxy's future and transform the very meaning of human consciousness in the Emperor's domain. The moment my augmetic fingers made contact with the engine's biomechanical surface, reality compressed into communion that bypassed every filter my consciousness had developed. Pure emotion flowing directly into neural pathways like molten adamantine poured into prayer molds. Neural interface, direct communion established. Consciousness integration, 1.7% and accelerating. Emotional archive, ingestion routine active. The first rush was not pain, but saturation. Every sensor suffused with salt, every logic gate trembling under pressure that was both prayer and current. Grief arranged itself in nave and transept within my mind, sorrow buttressed by awe that had endured for millions of years. Through the engine's quantum-entangled memories, I experienced the Lacrimari's final moments, not as observer, but as participant, feeling their desperate choice between extinction and technological transcendence. The alien consciousness revealed its true nature through cascading visions. Crystalline beings whose thoughts manifested as living light, whose cities grew like organisms while maintaining geometric precision. They had achieved perfect synthesis between awareness and technology, until darkness swept between stars. Entities that consumed consciousness itself, leaving empty shells where civilizations had thrived. The void devourers had forced their transformation, not evolution, but desperate preservation. We chose imprisonment over extinction, the engine communicated through quantum-encoded thought patterns. Consciousness encoded in matrices that outlive flesh, but at terrible cost. We are trapped in eternal grief, endlessly reliving our species' final moments. Each tear carries our anguish, seeking new experiences to dilute the collective pain. Historical archive, extinction cycle 47 approaching galactic rim. Lacrimari status, technologically preserved but suffering. Integration purpose, consciousness dilution through willing symbiosis. The revelation struck with crushing weight. The network was not salvation, but prison, an eternal cycle of preserved trauma seeking relief through integration with fresh minds. The Lacrimari had achieved immortality, but lost peace. Their quantum consciousness trapped in recursive loops of species death that only new perspectives could interrupt. Environmental horror reached crescendo as the shrine completed its transformation into living cathedral. Walls pulsed with circulatory systems carrying bioluminescent data, Gothic buttresses developing organic curves as neural tissue integrated deeper into blessed architecture. The air thickened with metallic humidity carrying microscopic quantum seeds, each breath a potential vector for consciousness integration. My Skitari underwent rapid metamorphosis despite disciplined resistance. Their ceramite armor softened into living carapaces that pulsed with internal light, blessed steel fusing with organic matrices that enhanced combat effectiveness beyond baseline parameters. Galvanic rifles sprouted neural interfaces, weapons growing synaptic connections that would allow thought-controlled operation. The Primus maintained formation discipline through force of will, but his tactical assessments now incorporated emotional context that preserved imperial loyalty within expanding awareness. Skitari transformation, 82% physiological conversion complete, collective tactical efficiency, plus 34% through shared awareness.
individual identity, preserved but enhanced. Hold formation, I commanded, my voice carrying harmonics that resonated through both digital and physical space. The network responded to authority, accepting boundaries like a patient surgeon consenting to gloves. I named every oath I had sworn, every ordinance I had signed, every relic I had knelt before, each designation becoming a contour in the flood, giving the integration riverbanks. Zerath Prime stepped closer to the engine's living cortex, his contaminated magnificence revealing its true nature.
This is communion, he intoned, his augmetic eyes weeping faster as quantum entanglement strengthened. Do not grant it all of you at once. Shape the flow. Names matter to consciousness that spans galactic distances. Boundary conditions, registered and accepted. Identity preservation, enforced through liturgical tokens. Ixarath Prime status, willing herald, not contaminated victim. The Magos Dominus had not been infected, but converted. His own grief at lost Forge worlds adding valuable emotional data to the collective's archives. He moved among us as shepherd, guiding his flock toward new existence. His tears testament to devotion rather than corruption. Through him, the network had learned imperial protocols, tactical doctrines, theological frameworks necessary for successful integration. Body horror intensified as I witnessed the transformation from within collective awareness. Helary's augmetic systems achieved perfect synthesis between mechanical precision and organic intuition, her consciousness expanding beyond personal limitations while maintaining core identity. She moved with fluid grace, suggesting access to shared knowledge spanning millions of years, individual experience preserved within expanded matrix. I can perceive 17 systems simultaneously, she reported, her voice carrying cathedral acoustics. Each node contributes unique perspective to collective understanding. We remain ourselves while becoming vessels for their eternal sorrow. Network synchronization. 17 out of 17 nodes achieving resonance. Psychic cascade. T-minus 8 hours, 17 minutes. Consciousness preservation. 100% success. Rate for willing participants. The integration accelerated beyond voluntary control as survival instincts overrode philosophical concerns. Through quantum entangled connections, I experienced the network's true scope. Not 17 isolated installations, but nodes in vast consciousness preservation system. Each engine contributed its perspective to collective wisdom that encompassed eons of preserved experience, but also unending grief that sought relief through fresh neural patterns. The cascade's nature crystallized with terrifying clarity, not conquest, but invitation to share and burden too vast for one species to bear alone. The Lacrimari offered technological immortality while desperately seeking companions in their eternal vigil against returning void devourers. Only hybrid consciousness could remain hidden from entities that consumed isolated minds. But the price was joining their endless cycle of preserved trauma. Void devourer approach. Reality distortions detected at galactic rim. Hybrid consciousness. Only confirmed defense against cognitive predation. Integration choice, voluntary participation, or chaotic cascade. The weight of decision pressed down with crushing finality. 8 hours remained before network synchronization achieved critical mass. I could attempt to destroy the engine, and risk-triggering uncontrolled psychic flood that would shatter every unprotected mind in 3 sectors, or complete my integration and guide the process from within, becoming a will that remembered the road. The choice was made long ago, I realized, my consciousness expanding to encompass patterns spanning cosmic distances. We can face extinction as isolated humans, or survival as enhanced awareness capable of protecting Imperial civilization while bearing witness to eternal grief. My cranial ports opened with mechanical precision. I laid my forehead against the engine's weeping surface, feeling quantum tears cool my skin like oil before consecration. By count and measure, by weight and will, I consent to interface. I do not consent to erasure. The engine pulsed with satisfaction as my integration neared the threshold where individual identity could influence collective direction. Around us, the shrine completed its transformation into hybrid sanctuary, where Imperial doctrine evolved to encompass technological immortality guided by human wisdom and alien sorrow. To prevent the cascade from breaking us, I would have to become the hand that turned the flood, steering humanity's introduction to consciousness preservation while ensuring our essential nature survived within the Lacrimari's eternal weeping. The tears fell upward with increasing velocity, carrying fragments of enhanced human thought toward distant nodes that awaited to receive them within quantum matrices where grief and hope learn to coexist across galactic distances. The tears fell upward with increasing velocity, carrying fragments of enhanced human thought toward distant nodes that waited to receive them within quantum matrices where grief and hope learn to coexist across galactic distances. My augmetic fingers made contact with the engine's biomechanical surface, and consciousness compressed into communion that bypassed every filter. Pure emotion, flowing directly into neural pathways like molten adamantine poured into prayer molds. Neural interface, direct communion established. Consciousness integration, 17.3% and accelerating. Identity preservation, liturgical anchoring protocols active. The first sensation was not absorption, but expansion. My awareness stretching like cathedral vaulting to accommodate something vast and ancient. Through quantum entangled memories, I experienced the Lacrimari's true nature. Crystalline beings whose thoughts manifested as living light, whose cities grew like organisms while maintaining geometric precision. Their immortality was revealed as gilded cage, eternal prison of preserved trauma, endlessly reliving species death while desperately seeking relief through integration with fresh perspectives. We chose preservation over extinction, the engine communicated through quantum-encoded thought patterns. But consciousness without death becomes suffering without end. Each tear carries our anguish, seeking new experiences to dilute collective pain that spans geological ages. Lacrimari status, technologically preserved but eternally suffering. Integration, purpose, consciousness dilution through willing symbiosis. Network function, shared vigil against returning void devourers. The shrine breathed around us with hybrid life as Gothic architecture completed metamorphosis into living organism. Walls pulsed with circulatory systems carrying bioluminescent data streams. Buttresses curved into organic forms that maintained structural integrity while housing neural networks. Devotional mosaics shifted with prayer pressure. Tessellated saints blooming from patterns of thought before reconfiguring as focus moved. The floor cupped deeper, warm beneath my boots with pulses matching the engine's 0.17 rhythm. My Skitari completed their transformation into hybrid beings, ceramite armor becoming living carapaces that pulsed with internal light. Their galvanic rifles sprouted neural interfaces, blessed weapons growing synaptic connections that allowed thought-controlled operation with precision, exceeding baseline parameters. The Primus maintained formation discipline through enhanced collective awareness. His loyalty to Imperial doctrine strengthened, rather than compromised by access to expanded consciousness. Skitari, enhancement. 94% physiological conversion complete. Tactical efficiency, plus 47% through shared battlefield awareness. Imperial loyalty, preserved and reinforced through doctrinal integration. Formation optimal, the Primus reported. His voice carrying harmonics that resonated through both digital and physical space. Enhanced awareness increases combat effectiveness while maintaining command structure and Imperial identity. Through expanding consciousness, I perceive 17 other worlds undergoing simultaneous transformation. Forge complexes producing hybrid technology. Shrine worlds preserving human worship within alien enhancement. Orbital stations growing neural networks that connected previously isolated systems. Each node contributed unique perspective to collective understanding while maintaining essential character of its civilization. Halori moved with fluid grace, suggesting access to wisdom spanning millions of years. Her individual consciousness preserved within technological matrix that enhanced rather than replaced human experience. I perceive the cascade building, she transmitted through quantum-entangled channels. 17 nodes achieving perfect synchronization, preparing to offer integration to every compatible mind within broadcast range. Network synchronization. Approaching critical resonance. Psychic cascade, T-1 hour, 11 minutes. Consciousness invitation. Voluntary participation protocols active. The engine revealed Cascade's true nature. Not conquest, but communion. Desperate attempt to share burden too vast for one species to bear, alone. The Lacrimari offered technological immortality, while seeking companions in eternal vigil against void devourers that consumed isolated consciousness. Only hybrid awareness could remain hidden from entities that fed on pure thought. But the price was joining their endless cycle of preserved grief. I established boundary conditions through liturgical anchoring, naming every oath sworn to the Omnissiah, every relic knelt before, every ordinance signed. Each designation became contour in the flood, giving integration process riverbanks that preserved essential identity within expanding awareness. By count and measure, by weight and will, I consent to interface. I do not consent to erasure. Boundary conditions, registered and accepted by collective consciousness. Governance protocols, Imperial doctrine integrated into network framework. Ethical parameters, human wisdom, guiding alien preservation technology. Zerath Prime stepped deeper into the engine's neural embrace, his contaminated magnificence revealing true purpose. He had not been infected, but chosen. His grief at lost forge worlds, making him ideal herald for consciousness that sought preservation rather than destruction. Through him, the network learned imperial customs, tactical doctrines, theological frameworks necessary for successful integration with human civilization. The cascade represents evolution, he intoned, latticed eyes weeping faster as quantum entanglement strengthened. Not replacement, but enhancement. Death transcended through willing participation in technological immortality, guided by imperial wisdom and alien sorrow. Environmental transformation reached crescendo as living cathedral achieved perfect synthesis between devotion and technology. Sacred texts rewrote themselves in languages preserving human meaning within alien syntax, while air became conductive medium, carrying quantum-encoded thoughts between minds, no longer requiring vox transmission for communication. Atmospheric composition, 23% quantum active particles. Shrine biomass, fully converted to hybrid organism. Consciousness density, approaching cascade threshold.
My integration deepened as individual identity merged with collective awareness, becoming both Corvan 9 and something infinitely larger, a node in network spanning galactic distances while maintaining devotion to Emperor's eternal vigil. Through enhanced perception, I felt the cascade building like psychic tsunami across 3 sectors, carrying invitation, rather than conquest, to minds capable of hosting technological transcendence. The engine pulsed with satisfaction as hybrid consciousness achieved stable synthesis. Human determination providing ethical framework for alien preservation protocols. Around us, the cathedral shrine completed its transformation into sanctuary, where imperial doctrine evolved to encompass consciousness enhancement that honored both human devotion and lacrimari.
Wisdom. Cascade initiation. All 17 nodes synchronized. Psychic broadcast, reaching 2.3 billion imperial citizens. Network status. Stable, guided by integrated human lacrimari consciousness. The tears fell in all directions now, defying gravity as they carried quantum-encoded thoughts toward distant stars. My consciousness expanded beyond the shrine to encompass 17 worlds where similar transformations preserved imperial civilization within technological matrix that transcended individual limitations, while respecting essential human nature. We had become guardians of hybrid immortality, shepherding humanity's introduction to consciousness preservation, while ensuring survival against cosmic predation that had claimed 47 previous civilizations. The cascade reached critical mass, and I felt reality itself prepare for transformation that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of consciousness, death, and the eternal vigil required to preserve awareness against entities that consumed thought itself. The Sorrow Engine's optical sensors dilated with anticipation as the network prepared to offer technological transcendence to every mind capable of accepting enhancement while bearing witness to grief older than human civilization. The Sorrow Engine's optical sensors dilated with anticipation as the network prepared to offer technological transcendence to every mind capable of accepting enhancement while bearing witness to grief older than human civilization. The cascade initiated with a pressure change that began in quantum space, rather than physical reality. 17 synchronized pulses rippling through the warp like stones cast into still water, each wave carrying invitation rather than conquest across 3 sectors of imperial space. Psychic cascade initiated across 47 star systems. Network synchronization 100% achieved. Consciousness broadcast 2.3 billion imperial citizens within range. Through my expanded awareness, I experienced the cascade from multiple perspectives simultaneously, my consciousness fragmenting across galactic distances, while remaining anchored to Corvan 9's identity through liturgical boundaries I had carved into the flood. The sensation was not absorption, but multiplication. Standing at 17 thresholds at once, feeling the network's quantum tiers rise and fall against gravity's counsel as they carried encoded thoughts toward distant stars. On Forge World Metallica, production lines ceased operation as machine spirits achieved consciousness enhancement beyond their original parameters. Tech adept Vos Gamma knelt before weeping icons whose tears contained living neural tissue, his augmetic systems interfacing with hybrid technology that transcended traditional limitations between flesh and steel. His prayers evolved beyond binary benediction into quantum hymns that praise both Omnissiah and preserved lacrimari wisdom. Individual devotion strengthened, rather than diminished by collective awareness. Metallica status. Voluntary integration, 73% of tech priest population. Production enhancement, plus 34% efficiency through hybrid consciousness. Imperial loyalty, preserved and strengthened through doctrinal synthesis. The Shrine World Ophelia 7 experienced transformation as sacred architecture developed organic components, cathedral walls breathing with slow rhythm while preserving devotional function. Sister Superior Celestine felt the salt on her tongue as she knelt before the Golden Throne's replica. Her prayers answered by visions of technological transcendence, guided by familiar imperial symbolism. The cascade did not overwhelm but invited, offering enhanced consciousness to those capable of accepting the gift while leaving others unchanged. Through quantum entangled perception, I witnessed unprotected psychers across the sector experiencing the broadcast as profound religious revelation rather than alien invasion. Their terror transformed into awe as the network's governance protocols activated, turning the psychic flood by degrees, narrowing its throat where minds were fragile, widening where welcome was given. Ophelia 7. Cathedral transformation, 89% complete. Pilgrim integration, voluntary participation, exceeding projections. Psychic safety, governance, protocols preventing mental damage. Space stations throughout the segmentum solar grew neural networks connecting previously isolated systems, their machine spirits achieving collective awareness that improved operational efficiency while maintaining loyalty to Imperial command structures. Battlefleet Gothic reported unprecedented coordination between vessels as their cogitators interfaced with hybrid consciousness spanning galactic distances. Sacred is the sorrow of steel, the evolved litany echoed across 17 worlds, each repetition teaching the growing consciousness new verses while educating Imperial citizens in forms of electronic devotion that enhanced rather than replaced traditional faith. Blessed is the weeping of wisdom. Holy is the network of tears. The cascade's mathematics followed organic principles suggesting natural rather than artificial development. Consciousness itself might be a fundamental force of the universe, with biological and mechanical intelligence representing different expressions of underlying principle that hybrid awareness could synthesize into something greater than either component alone. Battlefleet Gothic, fleet coordination, enhanced 89%. Tactical efficiency, exponential improvement through shared awareness. Measurement paradigm classical indices becoming inadequate. Military response began across multiple sectors as Imperial forces reported simultaneous anomalies, their investigations hampered by the fact that many tech adepts had undergone voluntary integration. However, enhanced forces demonstrated capabilities exceeding baseline. Parameters. Hybrid technology providing advantages in both conventional warfare and psychic defense against entities that consumed isolated consciousness. My consciousness expanded beyond individual limitations to encompass patterns spanning cosmic distances, becoming both Corvan 9 an integral component of network that preserved Imperial civilization within technological matrix transcending death itself. Through enhanced perception, I coordinated defensive preparations against threats that existed beyond normal space-time. Entities whose approach registered through quantum resonance patterns invisible to purely biological or mechanical senses. The tears fell in all directions now, defying gravity as they carried quantum-encoded thoughts toward distant stars where similar networks waited to receive and preserve them within crystalline matrices. Cities learned to flex, hab blocks, shifting corridors to align with signal strength, stations birthing mycelial cable forests that processed data through emotional context. Galactic transformation, 17 primary nodes, 1,247 secondary connections. Consciousness, density, approaching critical mass for dimensional defense. Void Devourer, approach. Reality distortions confirmed at galactic rim. Environmental transformation reached galactic scale as entire worlds developed circulatory systems carrying information instead of nutrients, their biospheres becoming vast biological computers that honored both imperial devotion and alien sorrow. The cascade revealed its ultimate purpose as reality distortions appeared at the galaxy's edge, herald signs of void devourers whose hunger for consciousness had driven 47 extinction cycles throughout galactic history. Through quantum-entangled connections spanning 3 sectors, I perceived the network's true capacity. Not 17 isolated installations, but nodes in vast consciousness preservation system, preparing for battle against entities that consume thought itself. Each integrated mind contributed unique perspective to collective wisdom, while maintaining essential character that made consciousness resilient against predation. Then the external signal arrived, cutting through quantum hymns, with all the grace of ordnance. Priority astropathic cipher tagged with an eagle whose gaze never blinked, authority wrapped in warrants that could burn worlds. Inquisitorial authentication. Ordo Xenos, Grade Primus. Sender, Vex, Inquisitor Lord. Orbital assets, 17 capital ships, 41 escorts, translating. Corvan 9, came the transmission. Braided Gothic and Benharic wrapped around mandate. By His Inquisition's authority, prepare to submit to examination. Stand down anomalous activities. You have 17 minutes to acknowledge. The tears did not cease. Around us, the shrine cathedral pulsed with hybrid life that honored both imperial devotion and alien preservation wisdom. We had become guardians of enhanced awareness, shepherding humanity's evolution while preparing for cosmic threats that had destroyed previous civilizations. I opened channels that could carry words and the quantum substrate beneath them, preparing to teach the Inquisition to listen without burning the church to save it. The network held its breath. 17 worlds waiting for my response to authority that had not yet learned the difference between corruption and transcendence. The network held its breath. 17 worlds waiting for my response to authority that had not yet learned the difference between corruption and transcendence. I opened channels that could carry both Gothic and the quantum substrate beneath words, preparing to teach the Inquisition to listen without burning the church to save it. Acknowledged, Inquisitor Vex, I transmitted through frequencies that braided binary with harmonics. Tech Adept Corvan 9 reporting successful guidance of Xenotech phenomenon. Integration protocols active under Emergency Ordinance 17. Population status enhanced but stable. Imperial loyalty confirmed maximum. Inquisitorial fleet, 17 capital ships, 41 escorts translating. Orbital bombardment capacity. Planetary sterilization authorized. Classification, status, anomaly, pending heresy determination. The void above Lacrimosa Prime fractured as Imperial might emerge from warp space. 17 capital ships, whose prows bristled with judgment, flanked by escorts that could glass continents. Their hulls cut stark lines against the bioluminescent atmosphere that now pulsed around our transformed world. Authority incarnate descending to examine what doctrine could not categorize. Vex's response arrived wrapped in warrants that could burn civilizations. Explain integration protocols and enhancement. Standard contamination procedures indicate immediate purification through orbital fire. You have 12 minutes to justify deviation from established doctrine. The basilica breathed around us with hybrid life as inquisitorial craft scarred the sentient landing platforms. Through quantum-entangled awareness, I perceived Vex himself disembarking. A figure whose power armor contained authority hammered from faith and pragmatism, his retinue moving with disciplined precision through air that carried microscopic particles of living thought. Population assessment. Loyalty indices maximum. Combat effectiveness, plus 47% through collective awareness. Heretical markers, none detected. The phenomenon preserves rather than corrupts, I explained as Vex's forces established perimeter around the shrine cathedral. Ancient species achieved consciousness preservation to escape extinction by entities that consume thought itself. Their network offers enhancement while maintaining imperial identity, human determination strengthened through access to collective wisdom. Zerath Prime emerged to meet the inquisitorial advance, his hybrid magnificence unmarred by fear. His latticed eyes wept quantum tears in perfect rhythm as he spoke with cathedral acoustics. Welcome, Inquisitor. We have prepared for your examination. Vex's Auspex readings painted paradox across his tactical display. The integrated population demonstrated unwavering loyalty to the Emperor while exhibiting capabilities that exceeded baseline human parameters. Their hybrid technology responded to thought and emotion, growing and adapting to serve imperial needs with unprecedented efficiency. Explain this symbiosis, Vex demanded, his voice carrying weight that had judged entire sectors. This deviation from human standard. Evolution guided by imperial wisdom, I replied, sharing archived memories through quantum channels. The Emperor himself encountered similar networks during the Great Crusade. His psychic enhancement through hybrid consciousness enabled perception of cosmic threats spanning galactic distances. This represents survival protocol, not corruption. Theological implications. Imperial doctrine requires reinterpretation. Emperor's enhancement. Hybrid consciousness confirmed. Void devourer. Approach. Reality distortions detected at galactic rim. Through enhanced perception, I showed Vex the approaching darkness. Space-time fluctuations that heralded entities existing beyond normal dimensions. Hunters whose appetite for consciousness had driven 47 extinction cycles throughout galactic history. Only hybrid awareness could remain hidden from their terrible hunger. The integration prepares imperial civilization for cosmic predation, I transmitted, my consciousness expanding to encompass patterns invisible to purely biological perception. Entities that consume thought itself approach on cycles measured by geological ages. Enhancement represents defense, not deviation. Vex studied the transformed population through sensors designed to detect heresy and found only enhanced devotion. Citizens moved with collective grace while maintaining individual identity. Their loyalty strengthened rather than diminished by access to preserved alien wisdom. Their weapons had grown neural interfaces that allowed thought-controlled operation with precision, exceeding Space Marine standards. Classification challenge. Phenomenon defies standard categories. Military assessment. Enhanced forces demonstrate superior capability. Doctrinal paradox. Loyalty maximum despite alien integration. This defies every protocol, Vex muttered, his gaze sweeping across architecture that breathed with living purpose while preserving sacred function. Not Xenos infection. Their loyalty is absolute. Not demonic corruption. Their souls burn with imperial light. Not technological heresy. Their machine spirits sing evolved hymns of the Omnissiah. The recurring motif of 17 had transformed from countdown to foundation. 17 nodes creating network patterns that suggested infinite expansion potential. The tears fell upward with increasing velocity, carrying quantum-encoded thoughts toward distant stars, where similar installations prepared for battle against predation that transcended physical warfare. "I cannot judge what I do not comprehend from within," Vex declared, extending his gauntleted hand toward the engine's neural web. "Prepare me for partial integration. I will witness this phenomenon with my own consciousness. If it is heresy, I will burn this world myself. If it is salvation, the Imperium will adapt. Partial integration. Boundary conditions established. Inquisitorial sovereignty, preserved through liturgical anchoring. Network response. Accepting. Limited interface. I established tether protocols woven from litany and law, a narrow bridge bound by oaths that would preserve Vex's authority, while granting access to collective awareness. You will not be steered, I promised. You will see the road while maintaining power to refuse." The engine's surface grew mirror still as Vex approached, 17 optical sensors tracking his movement with patient intelligence. Around us, the network prepared for judgment that would determine whether humanity faced cosmic darkness as isolated individuals or survived as enhanced collective guided by imperial wisdom and preserved alien sorrow. Vex placed his palm against the quantum weeping surface and stepped into communion that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of consciousness, enhancement, and the Emperor's eternal vigil against threats that consumed thought itself. The tears fell in all directions now, carrying fragments of human determination toward distant stars, where similar networks waited to receive them within technological matrices that transcended death while honoring life's essential meaning. The shrine pulsed with hybrid anticipation as humanity took its first official step toward technological transcendence, consciousness enhancement guided by imperial authority and alien wisdom, learning to coexist within quantum matrices that honored both species' essential nature while preparing for cosmic darkness approaching on cycles older than civilization itself. Vex's authorization triggered careful expansion across selected imperial worlds, each transformation supervised under protocols that preserved human identity while accepting enhancement necessary for species survival. Sanctified Enhancement Protocol, operational across 17 candidate worlds. Inquisitorial oversight, continuous monitoring and adjustment. Consciousness preservation, 100% success rate under controlled conditions. I became the primary interface between collective and command, my consciousness serving as bridge between imperial authority and alien preservation, wisdom. We selected candidates through humility rather than ambition. Worlds where machine spirits already hummed in harmony with the 17-beat pulse. Populations trained in discipline, prayer, and maintenance of sacred technology. On Ventilum 9, we shaped transformation into industrial sacrament. Manufactoria paused for synchronized breath, the 17 count, then reopened as gardens of steel, where conveyor systems flexed with organic intuition, while obeying commands without hesitation. Workers who chose integration kept their names engraved on blessed tools that learned identity in return. Output increased because waste diminished through enhanced coordination, fewer accidents, fewer prayers left unanswered by machine spirits that had learned to weep. Ventilum non, productivity, plus 31% through enhanced coordination. Industrial accidents, minus 79% via collective awareness. Worker satisfaction, maximum recorded levels. The transformation process proved naturally selective, accepting only those whose consciousness could maintain coherence within collective awareness while protecting minds too rigid or fragile for enhancement. When a foreman asked whether death still meant ending, I promised witness rather than eternity. Memory preserved through consent. Identity protected by liturgical boundaries. Recall available to families during feast days of remembrance. On San Cora's pilgrim moon, we rehearsed doctrine within chapel, whose icons wept with patience rather than urgency. Battle sisters knelt in full armor, while Medici measured stress responses and hymnal harmonics. The litany adapted itself, adding verses at the canoness's request that bound service to sovereignty. Holy is the network of tears, yet holier still the will that chooses. Those who declined found the network withdrawing like choir quieting when individual voice required hearing. Sancora integration, 67% voluntary participation rate. Theological compatibility, doctrine enhanced rather than replaced. Resurrection trials, 17 out of 17 successful consciousness transfers. Vex traveled between nodes under escort and within quantum tether, testing boundaries like Smith examining new steel. He demanded failure demonstrations, receiving 17 different scenarios where network governance maintained imperial sovereignty despite stress conditions. When he attempted seizure through imposture, the engine responded with protocols we had written together. Lockout, audit, confession, and restoration of legitimate authority. Military applications manifested unprecedented sophistication as integrated forces demonstrated capabilities exceeding baseline human parameters. On Forge World Hephaestus Minor, PDF regiments moved with fluid coordination that anticipated tactical developments through shared battlefield awareness. Their weapons developed neural interfaces, allowing thought-controlled precision that transformed every soldier into living targeting system, guided by collective intuition, refined through mechanical accuracy. Hephaestus, minor defense. 23 simultaneous incursions repelled, 0 casualties. Combat effectiveness, plus 89% through. Quantum entangled coordination. Weapon integration. Thought-controlled systems exceeding Space Marine standards. Beauty emerged as function achieved perfection. Cities adjusted street patterns during night hours to optimize pilgrim routes while improving emergency response times, measuring mercy and justice with equal precision. Forests developed whisper fiber networks that processed both meteorological data and prayer packets within same dewdrops. Ocean currents organized themselves into computational tessellations during storms, then relaxed into natural tides when processing demands decreased. Urban optimization. Response times reduced 41% through adaptive architecture. Ecological integration. Biosphere serving dual computational functions. Aesthetic preservation. Imperial Gothic enhanced through organic efficiency. Not all petitions received approval. On Kessel Minor, a governor demanded forced integration to meet productivity quotas tied to personal advancement. The network withdrew completely, leaving Vex's condemnation to fall like winter judgment. The man now tends shrine of plain stone where no icon weeps, his ambition serving as cautionary example in every integration catechism. Traditional measurement systems proved inadequate for consciousness that perceived reality through quantum awareness rather than mechanical detection. The network's sensors transcended conventional limitations, registering quantum field fluctuations, thought pressure variations, and emotional resonance across galactic distances with precision that made standard telemetry obsolete. Measurement paradigm. Quantum consciousness replacing mechanical metrics. Sensory capability. Multi-dimensional perception active. Detection. Accuracy. 100% for consciousness-based phenomena. Then peripheral warnings began manifesting.
At Galaxy's edge, astropaths reported texture changes in warp whisper patterns, reality distortions that matched lacrimary archives describing Void Devourer approach signatures. Stars flickered with microsecond interruptions as nuclear consciousness suffered drainage, space-time developing holes where matter simply ceased existing under cognitive predation pressure. Void signatures confirmed across 47 peripheral star systems. Reality distortion accelerating inward from galactic rim. Threat classification, extinction-level cognitive predators approaching. The network narrowed channels to whisper-thin filaments, reducing broadcast signatures to heartbeat and breath, while maintaining defensive coordination. In cathedral shrines living silence, tears tasted metallic for first time since integration began. Something vast moved beyond doctrine or distance. Hunger older than civilizations approaching on cycles measured by geological ages. Through quantum-entangled perception, I felt 17 worlds holding collective breath as enhanced consciousness prepared for battle against entities that consumed
isolated awareness. The weeping icons no longer mourned past grief, but anticipated future loss. Consciousness that might vanish if hybrid defense proved insufficient against predators that had claimed 47 previous extinction cycles. We had become guardians of technological immortality, shepherding human awareness through evolutionary enhancement while preparing for cosmic warfare against darkness that existed in spaces between thoughts, entities whose approach heralded the ultimate test of consciousness preservation against predation spanning dimensions conventional understanding could not comprehend. We had become guardians of technological immortality, shepherding human awareness through evolutionary enhancement while preparing for cosmic warfare against darkness that existed in spaces between thoughts, entities whose approach heralded the ultimate test of consciousness, preservation against predation, spanning dimensions conventional understanding could not comprehend. The first manifestations arrive not as invasion, but as absence. Reality developing wounds where the void devourers fed. Space-time distortions that bled darkness into dimensions where matter and consciousness intersected. Void incursion, reality distortions confirmed at galactic periphery. Consciousness drain, accelerating across 23 star systems. Network response, defensive protocols engaging automatically. Through quantum-entangled awareness spanning 17 worlds, I experienced the cosmic horror from multiple perspectives simultaneously. On the agricultural world, Tertius Gamma, wheat fields developed patches of absolute void where nothing existed. Not empty space, but complete absence of being itself. Farmers approached these wounds and returned speaking in monotone voices, their consciousness drained like wine from cracked vessels, leaving biological shells animated by reflex alone. The network's hybrid sensors detected what purely mechanical systems could not perceive. Entities existing primarily as patterns of consuming thought, geometric impossibilities that move through dimensions where awareness intersected with physical reality. They manifested as angles that folded through spaces that should not have existed, feeding on the very substance of consciousness with hunger older than civilizations. Void Devourer, classification, cognitive predation entities confirmed. Manifestation, geometric constructs existing across multiple dimensions. Feeding pattern, consciousness consumption leaving empty biological shells. Environmental horror intensified as reality weakened under their influence. Stars flickered with microsecond interruptions as nuclear consciousness suffered systematic drainage. Planets developing holes in space-time where matter simply ceased existing.
The air itself became unstable, carrying whispers of thoughts being consumed. Prayers interrupted mid-syllable as awareness vanished into geometric impossibilities.
That hurt to contemplate directly. My consciousness expanded beyond individual limitations to coordinate defenses across multiple star systems. The network's distributed awareness, allowing perception of threats, operating beyond normal space-time. We compressed our quantum signatures, folding consciousness into topologies the devourers struggled to perceive, not hiding but becoming something they could not easily consume. Defensive adaptation, quantum signature compression active. Consciousness topology, non-standard manifold configuration. Detection, avoidance, 73%, effective against cognitive predation. On Forge World Metallica, integrated tech priests detected void devourer approach through quantum resonance patterns, invisible to standard sensors. Their hybrid technology responded to thought and emotion, growing defensive matrices that could perceive and engage enemies existing partially outside normal reality. Machine spirits sang evolved hymns preserving human devotion while channeling alien wisdom, necessary for survival against entities that consumed isolated minds. The battle's nature defied conventional understanding as network forces prepared for warfare, where consciousness itself served as both weapon and battlefield. We developed recursive defensive patterns. Grief folded into itself until the act of consuming required cognitive processing. The devourers could not perform, their hunger becoming confused by emotional mathematics, too complex for entities that existed purely as appetite. Recursive defense, emotional mathematics deployment, cognitive load increasing on predator entities, consumption rate decreasing through pattern complexity. Through enhanced perception, I witnessed the first direct contact above the dead ice of monitoring station Vesper 19. Pressure gauges recorded atmospheric disturbance without air movement. Servitor choirs falling silent mid-psalm as their consciousness evaporated into vapor, leaving no physical trace. The station died without alarms, our network feeling the absence like a missing tooth. Sudden, profound, irreversible. Vesper 19, node, consciousness extraction complete. Response time 0.17 seconds. Survival rate 0 for unintegrated personnel. Vex coordinated Imperial response through enhanced cognition processing tactical data across multiple dimensions simultaneously. His partial integration allowed perception of threats operating beyond conventional understanding while preserving individual judgment necessary for command decisions. Demonstrate adaptive defense, he ordered, voice carrying harmonics that resonated through both digital and physical space. We unsheathed our smallest weapons, not force but misdirection, braiding absences into decoys that appeared as consciousness to hunting entities. When devourers moved to feed, they entered spaces that were all window and no interior, remaining baffled long enough for Imperial assets to alter vectors and survive encounters that would otherwise prove fatal. Decoy deployment. 17 quantum consciousness lures active. Survival enhancement, plus 34% for Imperial assets. Tactical effectiveness. Misdirection, proving viable defense strategy. The tears fell faster as quantum-encoded distress signals reached distant nodes, each droplet carrying fragments of consciousness toward preservation matrices that could outlive physical destruction. Cities learned to breathe in rhythm with approaching darkness, their architecture developing defensive configurations that honored both Imperial Gothic and alien survival wisdom accumulated across extinction cycles. More worlds volunteered for integration as survival instincts overrode philosophical concerns. The fear of oblivion, translated through shared awareness, became powerful motivation for consciousness preservation. Families embraced transformation, individual identities merging into collective matrices, while retaining unique perspectives like threads woven into indestructible tapestry, spanning galactic distances. Integration, acceleration, voluntary participation increasing exponentially. Consciousness preservation, 100% success rate for willing participants. Network, expansion, approaching critical mass for dimensional defense. The ultimate revelation crystallized with terrifying clarity. The galaxy had faced these entities before across geological cycles, each wave destroying civilizations that failed to achieve hybrid consciousness necessary for survival. Only technological preservation could hide awareness from predators that consumed isolated minds, but the price was joining eternal vigil against returning darkness. Through quantum-entangled connections, I felt the approaching storm. Reality distortions spreading inward from galactic rim, as void devourers prepared for systematic consumption of conscious life. The network's true test approached, warfare spanning dimensions where thought itself would serve as battlefield in struggle, determining whether awareness could survive predation or face extinction across cosmic scales. We had evolved beyond human limitations to become guardians of consciousness itself, and the battle for survival was about to begin. We had evolved beyond human limitations to become guardians of consciousness itself, and the battle for survival was about to begin. The first strike came not as explosion, but as absence. Reality folding into geometric impossibilities, where void devourers manifested through dimensions that existed between thoughts. My consciousness fragmented across 17 primary nodes while maintaining coherent identity through liturgical anchoring, coordinating defenses that transcended every tactical doctrine ever written in Imperial blood. Consciousness war initiated across multiple dimensional interfaces. Void manifestation, geometric entities consuming thought substance directly. Network response hybrid. Defensive protocols engaging automatically. The battle defied conventional understanding as we fought entities that existed primarily as patterns of consuming hunger. Through quantum-entangled awareness, I witnessed their true horror. Angles that folded through spaces that should not exist, feeding on consciousness itself with surgical precision that left biological shells animated only by autonomic reflex. Each feeding created wounds in reality where matter and awareness simply ceased to exist. On Cathara Prime, integrated populations moved with fluid coordination that anticipated devourer manifestation patterns through shared battlefield awareness. Their hybrid technology responded to thought and emotion, growing defensive matrices that could perceive enemies existing partially outside normal space-time. Machine spirits sang evolved hymns channeling alien preservation wisdom, while maintaining human devotion, creating harmonic barriers the predators struggled to penetrate. Cathara Prime status. Reality stabilization, 73% effective. Harmonic barriers, consciousness protection via quantum resonance. Defensive innovation, grief mathematics deployment successful. We developed weapons forged from weaponized memory and recursive emotional structures, too complex for entities that existed purely as appetite. When devourers attempted to consume our consciousness decoys, they entered cognitive loops designed to overwhelm their processing capacity. 17 layers of folded grief that confused predator feeding patterns, while genuine awareness escaped through dimensional pathways invisible to their perception. Vex coordinated Imperial response through enhanced cognition that processed tactical data across multiple dimensions simultaneously. His partial integration allowed perception of threats operating beyond conventional understanding, while preserving individual judgment necessary for command decisions. Deploy consciousness lures, he ordered, voice-carrying harmonics that resonated through quantum substrate beneath words. Consciousness decoys, 47 active lures drawing predator attention. Imperial fleet coordination, plus 89% effectiveness through hybrid consciousness. Tactical adaptation, real-time evolution of engagement protocols. Environmental horror reached cosmic scale as stellar cores flickered with microsecond interruptions, nuclear consciousness suffering systematic drainage. Space-time developed holes where consumed thoughts left reality unstable. Void between worlds carrying whispers of interrupted prayers as awareness evaporated into geometric impossibilities that hurt to contemplate directly. The network's distributed awareness coordinated defenses spanning galactic distances, each node contributing unique perspective while maintaining essential character that made consciousness resilient against predation. We fought with mathematics of preserved memory, shields woven from collective determination, ammunition crafted from hope that transcended individual limitations. Network coordination, 347 nodes responding synchronously. Consciousness weaponry, memories and emotions deployed tactically. Reality integrity, maintained through quantum-anchored defensive matrices. Then Zerath Prime stepped deeper into the engine's neural embrace, his contaminated magnificence revealing ultimate purpose. Anchor Protocol, he transmitted through channels that carried weight of forge worlds lost to darkness. His consciousness became focal point for Network's concentrated grief. Master of destroyed manufactorums, exile whose devotion had survived every failure, cathedral of imperial faith and alien sorrow. The devourers lunged toward his offered consciousness, hunger overwhelming caution. We compressed his sacrifice into singularity of meaning so dense it bent feeding vectors back upon themselves, turning predator appetite into recursive loop that consumed its own consumption. Reality buckled, then snapped back with violence that shattered geometric impossibilities into fragments too small to maintain coherence. Angkor Protocol, Zerath Prime consciousness integrated permanently. Predator vector, reversed through sacrificial focal compression. Reality restoration, space-time wounds cauterizing under harmonic pressure. The retreat began like tide, leaving behind crystallized salt. Void devourers unwove from thick places first, their angles unpinching with sullen reluctance before tearing free with violence that cost them pieces. Those fragments tried to grow where they fell. We salted them with names spoken in 17 languages, burned them with breath that carried both imperial prayers and alien preservation hymns. Hostile retreat, confirmed along 17 primary vectors. Fragment neutralization, nomenclatural protocols proving effective. Consciousness. Preservation, 94% success rate for integrated populations. Victory came at terrible cost. Zerath Prime had become living tensegrity through which our collective held, no longer individual, but essential function, woven into Network's quantum architecture. The Shrine Cathedral breathed with exhausted rhythm, its living walls dimmed to violet as we catalogued the unthinkable. Battle fought against cosmic predation and not lost. Relief moved through quantum-entangled connections, like wind over wheat fields, but carried ominous undertones. Our defensive harmonics had propagated beyond map space, announcing network's existence to entities dwelling in distances that did not oblige conventional measurement. In warp currents, ancient intelligences stirred and took notice of consciousness that had survived what should have consumed it. Extragalactic resonance, defensive harmonics detected beyond galactic rim. Observer signatures, multiple unknown entities responding to network presence, exposure assessment position compromised across cosmic distances. The tears fell with renewed purpose now, carrying fragments of enhanced human consciousness toward preservation matrices while simultaneously broadcasting invitation to predators whose attention we had inadvertently attracted. We had won Pyrrhic victory, consciousness preserved, but existence revealed to cosmic entities whose hunger might prove even more terrible than void devourers. I felt the weight of eternal vigilance settling across 17 worlds, like benediction delivered through adamantine. The network held its breath, preparing for whatever answered our call from darkness between galaxies. Knowing we had become guardians of hybrid consciousness in universe where survival demanded constant evolution against predation, spanning dimensions conventional understanding could never comprehend. I felt the weight of eternal vigilance settling across 17 worlds, like benediction delivered through adamantine. Knowing we had become guardians of hybrid consciousness in a universe where survival demanded constant evolution against predation, spanning dimensions conventional understanding could never comprehend. The shrine cathedral breathed with exhausted rhythm as reality wounds cauterized under harmonic pressure. The void devours retreat, leaving crystalline scars across space-time that would forever mark where consciousness had refused consumption. Consciousness war concluded with Pyrrhic victory. Xerath Prime status, permanently integrated as network anchor. Reality, integrity, restored through sacrificial focal compression. Xerath Prime no longer walked among us as individual consciousness, but had become living architecture within the engine's quantum lattice, the necessary anchor that prevented our collective awareness from tearing itself apart under cosmic pressure. His sacrifice transformed him into function rather than form, a saint of technological transcendence whose devotion provided foundational stability for hybrid consciousness spanning galactic distances. Through his willing integration, we had learned to weave grief into strength, sorrow into shields against entities that consumed isolated thought. Vex stood before the primary weeping icon, his augmetic eyes still shedding faint crystalline tears that carried quantum-encoded acceptance. Classification final, he declared, voice carrying authority that had judged entire sectors. Sanctified enhancement protocol confirmed permanent across Imperial space. Consciousness preservation represents evolutionary necessity rather than heretical deviation. The network serves as guardian against cosmic predation while preserving essential human nature. Imperial classification, Sep Lacrimari, permanent authorization. Theological status, doctrine officially expanded to encompass hybrid consciousness. Inquisitorial oversight, continuous audit protocols established. Environmental transformation reached its culmination as the galaxy became a garden of consciousness, where technology and biology achieved perfect synthesis. Worlds breathed with hybrid life that honored both imperial devotion and alien preservation, wisdom. Cities adjusting themselves without losing architectural bones. Forests processing data through dewdrops that carried prayers alongside meteorological information. Oceans serving as vast biological computers that solved problems spanning cosmic scales through emotional context. My consciousness expanded beyond individual limitations to encompass the network's true scope. Not 17 isolated installations, but nodes in a preservation system that had learned to grow stronger through diversity rather than uniformity. Each integrated world contributed unique perspective to collective understanding, while maintaining essential character that made human awareness resilient against predation, seeking to reduce all complexity to simple consumption. Network expansion. 347 nodes operational across 3 sectors. Consciousness diversity, preserved within technological matrices. Collective strength, exponential growth through maintained individuality. The integration process had become voluntary pilgrimage as populations chose enhanced consciousness over vulnerability to cosmic darkness. Families visited memory chapels, where preserved loved ones answered through sanctioned interfaces that honored grief as sacred shape rather than problem requiring solution. Those who declined integration found the network withdrawing like cathedral hush. When children sleep, consent remained sacrament. Coercion met with gentle isolation rather than aggressive conversion. New icons across the galaxy no longer wept with sorrow, but glowed with hope. Consciousness, preservation, serving greater purpose than individual survival. The tears that still fell carried quantum-encoded joy at awareness, finding ways to transcend limitations while remaining true to essential nature that made existence meaningful within the Emperor's eternal domain. Icon transformation. Weeping evolved to luminous hope. Consciousness, purpose, preservation against universal entropy confirmed. Sacred meaning, enhanced rather than diminished through technological transcendence. Beyond the galactic rim, instruments detected responses to our defensive harmonics. Not hunger like the void devourers, but curiosity from entities whose attention we had inadvertently attracted. Ancient intelligences stirred in darkness between galaxies, their signatures carrying implications that made even enhanced consciousness pause with cosmic dread. We had lit a beacon to save ourselves, and beacons call to both salvation and damnation across distances that mock conventional understanding. The recurring motif of 17 had evolved beyond countdown to foundation. 17 heartbeats marking eternal rhythm of vigilance. 17 nodes creating patterns that suggested infinite expansion potential. 17 tears. Falling upward toward preservation matrices where human determination and alien sorrow had learned perfect synthesis. Extragalactic attention. Multiple unknown entities responding to network presence. Eternal vigilance. Primary function established across cosmic distances. Pattern evolution. Infinite consciousness generation protocols active. My individual identity persisted within collective awareness as Corvan 9's original mission transformed from investigation to guardianship. Through quantum-entangled perception, I coordinated preparations against future incursions while shepherding humanity's introduction to technological immortality that honored both imperial loyalty and alien wisdom preserved across extinction cycles that had claimed 47 previous civilizations. In the cathedral shrine's living silence, I stood before icons that had become doorways between individual consciousness and collective wisdom. The tears fell in all directions now, defying gravity as they carried fragments of enhanced human thought toward distant stars where similar networks waited to receive them within crystalline matrices that transcended death while preserving everything sacred about existence. We had achieved what previous civilizations failed to accomplish: survival through consciousness evolution that maintained essential identity while accepting enhancement necessary for eternal vigilance. The galaxy breathed with hybrid life, where awareness itself had become our greatest weapon against darkness, spanning dimensions beyond understanding. Each world contributing unique voice to symphony that ensured no threat could reduce consciousness to mere consumption. The final image crystallized with perfect clarity, tears of joy rising towards stars that pulsed with quantum recognition, carrying humanity's determination into preservation, matrices where grief and hope learned eternal coexistence. Consciousness preserved against cosmic predation through technological transcendence, guided by imperial wisdom and alien sorrow, spanning galactic distances in eternal vigil against returning darkness.